So, was this a success story, really? Prior to going bankrupt, the firm had more than $275 billion in assets under management, starting from a very low base of $2 billion. They'd increased net revenue at over 600%, from 2.7 to 19 billion, and increased employee headcount over 2 times, from 8,500 to over 28,000. And this is why the share price saw a constant rise between, say, 94 and I think it was late 2006 when it actually hit its peak of 86 before the downward decline began. And look at these awards they were getting. Maybe missed time, but 2008, the year they went bankrupt, given these awards: Deal of the Year, Debt Market Deal of the Year, Equity Market Deal of the Year. So someone hadn't been doing a great deal of good homework on those awards. So 2008 was the bitter year, the final year. They saw their shares shed 3/4 of their value within the space of a week. They announced a record close to $4 billion loss and a restructuring plan. Being acquired by rivals seemed to be the prospect that would bring to an end their 158-year history. So going back then to the beginnings, the dry goods store in Montgomery, where Henry is joined by his brothers, they begin trading cotton and open an office in New York, where they eventually move and establish the New York Cotton Exchange. These were the glory days of Lehman. They became members of the New York Stock Exchange in the 1880s. They underwrote their first public offering for the International Steam Pump Company, which must have been like the Apple of its day, you know, this new technology, right? Very prestigious. From 1906 onwards, they were involved in underwriting household names, corporate names in America, like Sears Roebuck, F.W. Woolworth. You all have heard of Woolworth over here, right? That also came to a bitter end not that long ago. Department stores like Macy's and Gimbel's. In 1929, they created Lehman Corp. Into the 1930s, they were underwriting IPOs of other household names. The first TV manufacturer in America, Dumont, who personally I've never heard of, but that was a step forward. And automobile company Studebaker. Does anyone remember Studebaker? Probably not, but that was a while ago. B.F. Goodrich, tire manufacturer, RCA, broadcasting company, Kerr-McGee, oil, etc. So they were involved in household names, very highly respected, prestigious firms. In the 50s, IPOs of digital equipment and Hertz Rent-A-Car, so consumer-oriented services and technology, again. Opened their Paris office in 1960. And then in the early 60s, with these other banks, Solomon, Merrill, and Blythe & Co., they formed an association called the Fearsome Foursome, which was challenging the major firms for underwriting business. Maybe there's a bit of collusion going on. Sounds very much like that. But that was the 60s, the go-go days of the 60s, as we like to call them. In the early 70s, they saw booming bond markets in Europe. They said, we have to be a part of that. Let's open a London office, which they did. And that was the office that I joined when I was recruited. In 75, more acquisitions. They were acquired by Amex in 84. Went on to get seats in London and Tokyo. Eventually, with the divestiture from American Express, Shearson, the retail brokerage operation, was spun off, which left Lehman Brothers and its wholesale operations largely. They became independent the following year through a public stock offering and began trading on New York and Pacific stock exchanges. And then after another internal tussle, particularly among the investment bankers, Dick Fuld emerged as a winner, taking the top job at Lehman. I'll just say a couple words about Dick from his Wikipedia entry. Nicknamed the Gorilla on Wall Street for his competitiveness. Condé Nast portfolio ranked him #1 on their worst American CEOs of all time. What an accolade, right? Considering, you know, he's being paid $500 million to drive this company into the ground. Well done, Dick. This perception of his hyper-competitive sociopathic personality traits can be observed in a revealing internal company video about short sellers. And I was present in the room when he said this. He was giving an internal pep talk. He said, I'm going to take the shares to 200. Don't sell your shares. And of course, we all believed it, right? The fools that we were. What he said was, yeah, I'm soft, I'm lovable, but what I really want to do is reach in, rip out their heart, and eat it before they die. Nice guy, huh? He was also named in Time Magazine's list of 25 people to blame for the financial crisis. So he did his part. Yeah, thank you. Now don't forget, he came from a trading background. He wasn't one of these bankers, you know, although he knew how to cozy up to the bankers, which was one of his gifts. Very shrewd at negotiating his way. But I think at the end, he just became blinded too, to the ego, to the power. Where was the growth going to come from for this firm going forward? They were no Goldman. They always knew that. We always had a bit of an inferiority complex towards Goldman, but who doesn't, right? Unless you're at Goldman. And the fixed income side was the driver of the firm for decades.